public, I suppose you know what I'm going to talk about. And the whole village said, no. He got up, he greeted, and he said, if you don't know, it's not point in talking to you about anything, so I go. They were in very great perplexity, so they asked him to come again the very last time. So he came again after a few months. This time, of course, they expected the same question. So he came, he greeted, and he said, I suppose you know what I'm going to talk about. Half the public raised their hand and said yes, and half the public didn't raise their hand and they said no. He got up, he greeted them and said, the one half who knows, please tell the other half who doesn't know. So today's topic from the morning seems to be about Pina. What can we say about Pina? That's what I'm coming to. All of us spoke about her very intelligently. I heard all of them speaking about her and I was very impressed. I have known her for years, but I could have never been imagining that people can talk so much about and around it, except that I know what a wonderful production she gave us and what a wonderful dancer she is and what a wonderful friend. But that's not enough. When they telephoned and asked me you should come as a friend to talk about Pina, I said yes, feelingly I would love to come and talk, but then what can I talk? And they said, no, but you are an Indian friend, so why don't you talk about that? Because they need something to write about. So they wrote that I'll talk about India and Pina Bausch. All right, you must want to know something about India and Pina Bausch now. I can just say that she loves India and India loves her very much. She loves Indian dance, Indian rituals, Indian tradition, Indian mythology, I suppose Indian food and everything connected with India. But then Japan was saying the same thing just now, and many countries say the same thing. So Italy too. So we can all say we share her also, her interest and her love.
I would like to remind you that Pina Bausch's work is not only European, but it's truly cosmopolitan. And in her company, for example, there are people, dancers, performers, everyone from all over the world, from the United States, from Australia, from Korea, and so on. And her repertoire now includes works like Fensterputzer, which was co-produced with Hong Kong Art Center, and by the way, which will be performed in Japan in coming weeks, along with Taoris, Victor, and Danson. Yes, indeed, the Tanztheater of Pina Bausch is the crown jewel of contemporary European culture, but as such, it is also the gem of global culture of humankind. Now, that's what I want to remind you in the beginning of this speech. And then I would like to say a few words from a little bit more general perspective. But actually, I'm neither a choreographer nor a dancer. I'm not even a dance critic. I'm only a writer who sometimes write about dance, and as such, I've interviewed Pina Bausch a couple of times. So I'd like to start about this awful experience, interview with Pina Bausch. Indeed, as many of you might well interview with Pina. Not that she's not cooperative, rather because she's dead serious, the interview becomes all the more difficult. For example, first you ask some banal, silly questions. What is dance for you? What do you express by means of dance? Then she looks down. Quite inevitably, you end up being interviewed by her. And you start, you begin to understand how demanding question and answer session of Pina with her dancers. Therefore, at one point, I came to the conclusion that it was almost meaningless to interview Pina. Lacanian psychoanalyst would say, I'm a sort of le sujet supposé savoir, the subject supposed to know for him. So in front of me, he never stops speaking. He goes on speaking about extremely abstract things at the extremely high speed, at the speed of light. Like when you subtract the spatial from the balletic, what you get is the purely événementiel. Okay, and during the interview, very strangely, I'm convinced that I somehow understand him. But after leaving him, totally satisfied with a very exciting interview, I suddenly realized that I don't remember anything. And again, that does not matter, that's perfect. My entire neural network is totally washed and cleansed by this extreme jets of conceptual stream, and I feel completely fresh. Therefore, I would say that if the conversation with Billy Forsyth is ultraviolet, conversation with Pina Bausch is infrared. Both are invisible, both are almost meaningless, and still you get something very precious, very important, and much more important than words. And can't I say the same thing about their respective performances? On the one hand, Forsyth Ballet is now so sharp as to exceed the limit of visibility. Just as you cannot see a pure geometric line, On the other hand, Pina's dance theater is so dense that it exceeds the limits in the opposite direction. You cannot understand what you saw on stage. No, you cannot. You are not even sure you really saw something. You really saw the core of the performance. And still, from the emotional machine she put on stage.
I said, Pina, I try to survive, and you are telling me my back is strange. You cannot imagine when you try really everything, and you really try, and there comes a point you got so furious, so helpless. And on this point, I have to make a big compliment to her. She never made me feel like a loser. And this kind of human behavior and love perhaps was the best thing in all these years. And if you would have asked me at that time, can you imagine to do the whole thing in English or French or Italian, then I only would have laughed. But today I know we are going to make the next performances in Japanese. And I hope I have learned that if your little finger is not with you, nothing is with you. And if your back can tell everything. So if your finger, your back, and your ass is not with you, then forget about all you want to try to express. Hopefully I learned that. Pina is always asking for the impossible. And already as children we were taught the real impossible is impossible. But today I know, if you try to, you can come a little bit closer to the impossible, a little bit. And therefore, and for a lot of other experiences, I want to say thank you to that lady, to Pina, who, after more than 20 years, still can surprise me, and she does.
Importance. I mean, everything has been said about Pina, and her work is, it continues, and it continues, and it continues, and it's, she never gives up. And I remember once she was very, very tired. This was not New York, this was here. And she was rehearsing and was, I mean, tired is not the word. And suddenly she turned to me and she said, Lunia, how can I think about giving up my Martha choreographed until she was 95? And I think this is Pina. And it's also Pina from New York. She came in, we knew her in the 60s, I knew her in the 60s in the beginning. And I should begin with this 51 19th Street. They asked me for a title for what I would say, and I said it should be called 51 West 19th Street. And why is because this is where we had Paul Sanasardo and I, in 1956, began the Studio for Dance. And because on 51 West 19th Street, it was in the Garment District section, we had 3 lofts that belonged to us, and we were wild, we were very free, we couldn't care less about what other people thought and what they did, but we were going to make a studio for dance. And it was incredible, and we were free, and it was, in back of us were my background that I had come to New York, to Juilliard, which I think is at that time very important, because the first time I of course knew about Martha, that's why I came to New York. And had read, looked at the Barbara Morgan book since I was 12 years old and knew it back and forth. And the first day I come to Juilliard, who is there but Martha, and gives the class. And comes up suddenly in the middle of the whole class and she says, my dear, I think you're very talented, but that is not second position, and it will never be second position. And I began to cry. I just cried and cried and cried. And then I began working on this second position. But I began to very early, a year later, hardly a year later, I was an understudy for Martha, and began teaching in the school, and then suddenly there came a very tall Italian, and very enormous energy, and making friends with everyone and holding everyone, and I don't know what the hell is this, and this was Paul Sanasardo. And he had come from Chicago, he was a painter, and had wanted to dance. And he was working with Anna Sokolow and with Pearl Lang, and we met at the school, and he had a performance of Anna Sokolow's Rooms. And after this performance, everyone was saying, "Oh, Paul, you're such a great dancer," and it was so fantastic with Rooms. And I went up to him and I thought, "This was horrible. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. I think you're terrible." And left. And he caught me, and we became very, very close friends. From this, I really attacked him like hell. I was wrong, but about this work of Anna Sokolow. But at the moment, it was something else. This relationship with him, we began to make the Studio for Dance. This was in 56. A few years later, we all worked with Anthony Tudor. And something about New York at that time, and the thing that was one of the biggest things about Juilliard, that at Juilliard was Martha Graham. And of course, the teachers with Helen and Bob and Yuriko, and there was Louis Horst and his assistant, Natanya Nolman. And there was Limon, and there was Humphrey. It was incredible. And these were the people we worked with and the people we met. We didn't go to someone's school who had worked with them, but with them. And what Martha Hill had created there is a place really to come. But the same thing existed in the ballet world. I mean, Tudor was there, Kras was there, Corvino was there, and we were suddenly exposed to everything and were given this possibility. And of course, you didn't stay there such a long time because it was so protected. You went and you made your own life. Tudor came to us and said that, there's a very, very beautiful girl that Jons has sent you. Her name is Pina, and you have to see her. And she was training at the Met on 39th Street in this big place. And everyone could come to the Met, and everyone could work with Anthony Tudor. I mean, to me, this was just incredible. And who was there we met Pina. And what happened was that we really met each other, and in some way understood each other. And we asked Pina, would you come to the studio, and would you like to take class with us, and if you need to, you can live here, and all of this. And it happened the first time.
What I have from memories I have from Pina is around the swimming pool in Saratoga with cheeseburger and a little cherry over Manhattan. That's how one of our first records. And yeah, I mean, I think. Well, I don't know. Well, I didn't speak German. I didn't really speak English. She didn't speak French.
Good basis.
Good basis. And I think that's probably we're still working together because we kept the same basis, sort of. So we loved. I think we understood and loved each other very quick. And I think it's still. I don't speak English, I don't speak German, and she doesn't speak French.
But nevertheless, you understand.